Listen, a sky that seems to breathe, a field of sunflowers that stares back like a small sun, a single ear wrapped in bandage, and a hand that paints with fever. This is Vincent van Gogh, the man who turned pain into color and movement into melody on canvas. In a life of just 37 years, he filled rooms with raw yellows, churned night skies into spirals, and made ordinary cypresses look like living flames. Today, we'll walk through his restless life, the flashpoints that changed him, the methods he used, impasto, that thick layered paint that makes surface feel sculpted, and the quiet obsessions that return to him again and again. Expect close looks at the Starry Night, sunflowers, Wheatfield with crows, irises, and cafe terrace at night. Expect surprises. He painted prolifically in the last decade of his life. He struggled to sell work, while now his canvases sell for fortunes. He once cut his ear, then painted himself. Listen for how color becomes confession, how brushstrokes become voice. Let's begin. Vincent Willem van Gogh was born in Groot-Zundert, the Netherlands, in 1853. The son of a pastor, he moved through dour Dutch interiors and the sober moral world of his family, an upbringing that left him attentive to the poor and the plain. He failed at several careers: art dealer, teacher, preacher. Only in his late 20s did he set his face toward painting, which is a curiosity in itself. An artist who found his calling late and then burned through it with astonishing speed. Early works like The Potato Eaters show a palette of browns, a focus on peasant life, and a search for honesty rather than prettiness. He sent drawings and studies to his brother Theo, who became his lifelong supporter and dealer. Theo's name threads through Vincent's life. Their letters are the tether that kept him making. This period roots Van Gogh in Dutch realism and in a moral empathy that will haunt and animate his later, brighter canvases. What shaped Van Gogh's eye? First, the hard-edged realism of artists like Jean-François Millet, who painted rural labor with dignity. Then came Paris in 1886, where Vincent met Impressionists and Japanese prints. The bright palette and short, broken brushstrokes of the French avant-garde overturned his tenebrous Dutch tones. He absorbed color like a new language, complementary contrasts to make vibration, outline, and flatness inspired by ukiyo-e, and the intensity of Gauguin's synthetic color when they worked together. But Vincent never copied, he translated. Works from his Paris and Asnières years, brisk scenes and experiments in light, are laboratories where he learned how color could carry feeling. A curiosity, he sometimes trimmed canvases and reused cheap materials, meaning his experiments were practical as well as ecstatic. His early hunger for authenticity turned him toward subjects that mattered. People, rooms, streets, fields, night skies. Van Gogh's signature arrived as a synthesis of gesture, color, and rhythm. Think of the Starry Night, a nocturne that swirls a village tucked under an alive sky. Or sunflowers, not merely still lifes, but talismans of light, sunflower heads like little suns on thick tactile surfaces. His Arles period yielded the bedroom, simple perspective, reverent domesticity, and cafe terrace at night, where electric yellow turns pavement into a glow. He favored impasto, thick paint applied so the brushstroke makes ridges and reflections, which turns light into sculptural relief. He used complementary colors side by side so they vibrate, blue against orange, violet against yellow. These are not tricks, but expressive choices. Each stroke counts as a heartbeat. He painted many series, sunflowers, orchard cypresses, repeating motifs to probe their emotional range. Each painting is both a picture and a declaration of feeling. Vincent's life altered at a few sharp moments. One was Paris, where he absorbed modern color. Another was his move to Arles in 1888, the sun-drenched Provençal town where he dreamed of an artist's community. He even painted his house yellow. The arrival of Paul Gauguin lasted months and ended in a violent quarrel. Soon after, Vincent severed part of his left ear. That incident sent him in and out of hospitals and led to his admission to Saint-Rémy Asylum in 1889, a place where, paradoxically, he produced some of his most luminous work. Irises and the Starry Night were painted there. In May 1890, he moved to Auvers-sur-Oise to be near Dr. Gachet. His last paintings, including the poignant portrait of Dr. Gachet and Wheatfield with crows, belong to those months. Another sharp fact: Vincent made more than 2,000 drawings and paintings in roughly a decade, a furious late burst that changed everything we call modern art. Technically, Van Gogh is a master of directness. He worked mainly in oil on canvas, often priming with a thin ground and then building up with heavy impasto. Impasto, thick paint that adds physical depth, creates shadows and catches light, making paint itself a tactile language. He used short, directional strokes to convey movement. Sky becomes vortex, wheat becomes wind. His palettes shifted with place, earthy browns and greens in the Netherlands, bright yellows and ultramarines in Arles and Saint-Rémy. He sometimes mixed paints himself and used whatever supports were available, a pragmatic habit of someone who painted every day. He wrote about color as emotion, treating pigments like notes in a song. A curiosity, he painted through illness, sometimes using art as therapy, and his brushwork betrays both urgency and control, a choreography of feeling across the surface. Across Van Gogh's oeuvre, certain obsessions recur. Night and starry heavens represent the infinite and the solitary human gaze. Cypresses and wheat fields often evoke life, death, and the cycles between. Sunflowers symbolize friendship and light. He painted them to decorate Gauguin's room and to welcome him. Portraits, from peasants in the Potato Eaters to the melancholic Dr. Gachet, reveal Van Gogh's ethical attention to the human face as landscape of feeling. Blossoming branches like almond blossom are declarations of hope, gestures toward renewal. A curious counterpoint, the same brush that rendered tender blossoms could churn a threatening sky. His vocabulary embraced tenderness and turbulence, sometimes in the same canvas. Symbols are rarely allegory here. They are emotional anchors, repeated until their meaning deepens and shifts. During his life, Van Gogh was poorly understood. His early showings met with indifference or hostility. His heavy, visible strokes and intense color struck critics as crude. He is often said to have sold only a single painting while alive, a fact that captures the tragic mismatch between genius and market in his time. Mental health colored public perception. His ear episode made him a sensational figure and fueled myths about madness and the artist. Even the circumstances of his death in July 1890, he was shot and died 2 days later, have been debated by historians, though the basic fact remains. In the years after his death, exhibitions and reproductions spread his name. By the 20th century, his work helped define Expressionism and became a battleground in discussions of authenticity, value, and the cult of the tortured artist. Van Gogh reconfigured what painting could be: a confession, an argument, an embrace. His emphasis on color as psychological force inspired expressionists, artists who put feeling before fidelity. His active brushwork taught modern artists that surface could carry meaning independent of subject. Today, his images are global idioms. The Starry Night appears on posters and pillows. Sunflowers adorn museum merchandise. His life story shapes popular imagination about creativity and suffering. Auction records and cultural saturation tell a final irony. Works dismissed in his lifetime now command astronomical prices and fuel scholarship and debate. His legacy also lives in pedagogy. Painters still study how he translated sensation into pigment and how repetition, series of sunflowers, orchards, night scenes, yields depth over time. A few vivid curiosities to carry home. 1. Van Gogh painted relentlessly in bursts, roughly 2,000 works in about 10 years, an astonishing late productivity. 2. He created multiple near-identical sunflowers. They were not mere copies, but explorations of light and mood. 3. After the ear incident, he painted himself with a bandage, an immediate, raw self-portrait of injury and identity. 4. He sometimes painted on poor supports, pieces of paper, reused canvases, because he painted every day and could not wait for perfection. 5. In Saint-Rémy, confined yet prolific, he painted the Starry Night, looking from his asylum room, a cosmos both observed and imagined. Each of these details deepens the paradox. Van Gogh was at once a meticulous student of craft and a furious, impulsive executor of feeling. Vincent van Gogh's life reads like a compressed novel, his paintings like letters written in color. He asked, "How does one speak with paint about longing, solitude, rejoicing, and fear?" His answer was never neat. It was swirls, thick dabs, complementary sparks, and oft-repeated motifs that accumulated meaning. Today, we do not only look at his work, we feel it, because he tuned paint to the human pulse. The Starry Night still hums like a held breath. Sunflowers still burn like small, stubborn suns. The bedroom still invites us in, quiet and exact. Van Gogh's resonance endures because his paintings are both raw and finished, immediate utterances that survive to teach us how color can tell a life. Listen then, with your eyes. The canvas speaks.